So, hello. I am coming to you with another video from my splenic side at 1:15 in the morning because I just had the download and the impulse to make this video. So, the last video I made was me talking about an invitation that I received and how exciting it was to really feel what it felt like to receive a true invitation since learning about human design. So the thing that I've been thinking about and working with over this past time, I guess it's been about like 2 weeks since I received the invitation. And the reason I guess I got this impulse to make this video right now is because in a couple days I am having like a Zoom call with the people that I might be working with, right? So the invitation was for like a potential job, right? And so it's for a social media manager for a microdosing company. And in the last video, I was like, that's basically all the information that I know, right? And so immediately I got this feeling of like, feeling like I wanted to do it, feeling like it was a yes. And then after watching that video, I kind of was thinking, I'm like, you know, maybe I've been kind of tapping into this like sacral authority in a sense. Like, I don't want this to be too confusing, but I've been kind of going off of, you know, does this feel like a yes? Do I feel excited about this? Or does this feel like a no? Do I feel like drained by this idea? But I think that with the spleen, it's a bit more about tuning into like my physical wellness. And so my spleen is connected to my root center. So definitely, you know, connected to like stress and anxiety and, you know, the adrenals. And so for myself, like when I'm really like tuning into my spleen, I have to think more about like my physical well-being, like any feelings of like feeling nauseous or stressed or anxious, like those are the signposts, the like indicators of it being a no. And then if I feel calm, like if I feel like really grounded in myself and like really like centered, then that's a yes. And so it's different than what I think I've been like attributing yeses and nos. Like I think I've been thinking like, oh, am I excited by this? Like, do I want to do this? Like, is this like feeling good in my body? But it's not really like that. It's more about physical wellness. So that is one thing I wanted to talk about. And the other thing, which like I'll make a totally different video on this because it's like something I think is really cool. And I think this happens with a lot of people's charts, but specifically with projectors, because I think that you can be like, if you look at genetic matrix, you can have like, you can see your design side, your personality side, and then like the quantum view of everything, right? And so on my design side, my unconscious side, I am a self-projected projector. And then on my personality side, my conscious side, I am a mental projector. And so over the past like couple weeks, I've been really kind of like experimenting with those other authorities in addition to my spleen. And it's been a really cool experience. And that's also why like I wanted to make this video, because since I have the meeting coming up, like I want to have kind of this process, which I've been doing. I've been like, you know, recording some audio clips of myself speaking and like journaling and like talking to myself in the mirror and like doing all of that, which is wildly helpful. Like I think that it's not my final say, like it's not like what I'm basing my decision on, but it's definitely something like part of my process for decision making is taking that time to really like talk through it. And, you know, experimenting with the mental projector side, it's kind of a little bit difficult in the sense that I'm like, okay, talking to a trusted person, sure, but then, you know, finding an environment that I feel like comfortable in and like safe in. And so I think that I'm doing that. Like typically I'm in my room and I have really good vibes in my room. Like I feel like really, really calm and like connected. So I think that's like check. And then speaking it out loud, self-projected, check. And then the spleen, like feeling how calm do I feel or how stressed do I feel, you know? And so I think this is so interesting when I was thinking about this decision, right? And so I don't know if I said this, but yeah, so I like the details that I know at this point about the opportunity is that it's like a fairly new company, you know, it's like a startup and they've been in business for like 6 months. And so like when you think of the term like social media manager, it's like loosely used, you know? But I think that it's really interesting that, like I said in the last video, I was gonna like really like sit with this decision and like cross-reference every data point and not just be like, oh, like I like that idea or I have a good feeling about this and I'm gonna like go forward on it. Because when I was thinking about all of the different like variables and like possible outcomes, I'm like, okay, if I go, if the expectation for like bringing me on is going to be like I'm the person who like runs their page and like is in charge of all of their social media and like creates all the strategy and like creates all the content and is like the one who is managing all of it, I get like, I feel like physically ill, you know, and like that's the sign, that's the spleen, that it's like I feel like super overwhelmed, super anxious about that. And like also I have a totally open will center. So like, you know, undefined is white and totally open is white, but you have absolutely no gates activated in it. And so I have, you know, like this feeling of always wanting to like people please and, you know, never feeling like I can kind of like set my own boundaries in the sense that like if I'm being offered something or if there's like something that I like and I want it to go well, I will typically like compromise myself in order for it to happen. And so this is a really big piece for this as well, that it's like I'm kind of pre-setting my expectations for how I want it to go, and then I'm kind of like releasing it to the universe to be like, if I come up with kind of this like wish list almost of what would work best for me, and then it vibes with them, like it, like if they look at that and are like, yeah, you know what, that makes total sense, and like that's exactly what we were looking for, you know, like best case scenario is that it's just like this perfect mesh, and it's like they're looking for exactly what I'm willing to offer, you know. And so kind of going back to that, you know, like if they're expecting that I am going to be like running everything and like doing all of that output, you know, as a projector, like it's just not going to work. It's not correct for me. Like I'm working on my own businesses. I'm like creating my own stuff and I'm working up to a launch. So it's like I have to manage my own energy for my own business, and I'm definitely not going to be able to like consistently follow through for someone else's business, no matter what the scenario is, you know? Yeah, and then that whole commitment, like it feels like a big commitment, and I also don't want to let people down too. Like I don't want to commit to something, which I've done in the past, thinking that like, oh, I'll just work harder, you know? And I've done that, and I've like wrecked my adrenals and not gotten enough sleep and just like pushed myself way more than I was like supposed to, especially being a projector. So this time I'm going to do something different, and I'm not going to rely on the false pretense of being able to just do more and work harder. I'm going to recognize that this is what I'm willing and able to contribute, and I'm not going to promise that I'm going to over deliver or end up under delivering, you know? And so the thing that I wanted to say about that was about creating my wish list. And so that's why I think this is such a cool way of kind of putting this together, because I could write a list, and I've actually thought about writing a list for the last few days, but you know, I think this is kind of like a better solution. Like I can just kind of list out the things that come to my mind, you know, like I'm a quad, right? So things just kind of like flow out of me. So and I've kind of like mulled this over in my head a bit too. Like it's like I kind of like write like almost frameworks of things in my mind, and sometimes I, you know, capture them and I write them down, but a lot of the time I'm just kind of like working things out in my brain, and then it's just kind of all floating around in there, and then something happens and I'm in a scenario and I'm able to like grab the different pieces that I've kind of like pre-formulated, you know? Yes. And so my wish list, the perfect scenario for this would be that, you know, whether it's, oh yeah, and there's like a like business partnership, and then I'd be the third person. And so it's like, whether they are like wanting to create their own content and just like don't really have the ideas to put it all together, or like to have like consistent output, my role would be best as like a social media consultant, or like a social media strategist or something like that. And so where we could like meet over Zoom and we could brainstorm, and I could come up with all these ideas, which I already did. Like I sat down, which is why actually another reason why I have a good feeling about this is like I'm really following my energy. Like what I said in another video about doing like human design readings for like my brother and my friend, you know, and how like exhausted I felt afterwards, like just absolutely depleted. And so I'm really following that, like how inspired am I by the project or by the, you know, opportunity, and then how much energy do I have for it? And so I did like a little test, and I was like sitting there and I was like, wow, some like ideas for content are coming up. And I literally sat down in like 5 minutes and I came up with like a whole page of like content ideas and image ideas and like pairing the two things together. And it was just like literally the easiest thing I've ever done, and it felt so good, and it was so fast, and it was like the best. And afterwards, it was like the afterwards is the important thing to focus on, because afterwards I felt rejuvenated, you know, like I felt like elated. And it's one of those things, like the thing that happens for me is like my mind comes back to it, you know, like it's like I'm no longer in the moment. I'm now in my like daily life. I'm like washing dishes or I'm doing whatever. And it's like, if my mind is constantly going back to that moment and like almost like reliving, going like, oh, like that was a really good idea, or like that was interesting, or like it's like starts to like branch off into other things, like, and then I just keep getting like refueled from that same idea or from that same moment, then that is good. That is definitely a like positive check mark. And so for the wish list, if they want somebody to like consult with and to create like a framework and a strategy and like a brand for them and like create the structure around it, you know, like I'm a 1-3, so like that's totally my vibe. And yeah, and if they want to like, and then maybe they find someone else, maybe they find like another person, like an intern style scenario, and it really does kind of form into that like social media manager role. That's like, I'm not the one who's actually creating all of the content, but I'm guiding the person who is creating the content. So it's like they don't have to have all of the burden of like, you know, creating and posting and upkeep and all of that, but they can kind of get those ideas from me, and like you can collaborate together, but then they're in charge of like consistent output, you know? Like it's like I just know like in my like soul that if I'm responsible for like consistently producing results, it's not going to go well. It's going to feel like I'm like confined, and there's going to be all this pressure, and then I'm going to get anxious, and then I'm going to like not produce, and I'm not going to be creative, right? But if there's that scenario, then I'm totally willing to like contribute. And like if something comes up and I feel inspired and I feel like this impulse to create, like I will create something. I'll make a video, I'll make a post, I'll write something. Like I'm like all up in copywriting and like captions and all of that, you know? But it's like I can't be the sole person responsible for it. Like I can add the like bonus content to it, and I know that it'll be like abundant and super aligned and like beautiful if I'm not required to produce a certain amount each week or whatever, you know? So that's kind of my what's it called? And then I wanted to create some non-negotiables as well. So like that would be the perfect scenario, but then now I want like some safeguards too. Like it's like if they say, and like this is okay too, like I'm leaving space for it to be a no, even though there's all these like good things that seem like positive aspects. And like even I talked to one of them about human design, and he seems like super receptive, because I do want to know, like, are they a generator? Like what's their, you know, what's their scenario? And so I think that that's also a plus, that they or he is open to it. But yeah, if they say, sorry, like, you know, we're looking for somebody to like run the page, like be the social media person, and then there's no like wiggle room for like, you know, like we're not really looking to bring on like a fourth person or whatever, then I'd be like, that's totally cool. I completely respect that. And like, I'm going to honor myself, and I'm going to say that this isn't the right opportunity for me. And then you never know, like how things evolve down the line. It's not like because right now it's a no based on what I have going on in my life and like how just who I am and how my energy works, you know, doesn't mean that the scenario or the offer won't change down the line, you know, or even morph into something different. And then now you're connected in some way, and it's like, this was a no, but that's a yes, right? So I'm totally open to how things can evolve. And then non-negotiables. Yeah, see, this is the thing. Like, I'm also not certain that it would be like much of a paid position either. So like, even, you know, they're a startup, and like I said, I'm totally like understanding of startups and how that goes. So I'm not sitting here being like, oh, I need to like be paid for every moment. Like I'm pretty chill when it comes to all of that. But because I know that just like everything kind of works out in the end. But yeah, I'm not gonna, especially if it's like in more of like a volunteer category, and like, you know, as the company grows, then like conversation for compensation also reemerges. But I, in the past, would compromise my integrity to fulfill someone else's desire. So I am not going to do that anymore. Well, anyways, that was my little analysis on making this decision, and, you know, seeing how correct this is from a human design perspective. So I am excited to see how the meeting goes and to share my experience with this new opportunity, potential job, or, you know, thing that could come out of this. So I hope that this was helpful in some way, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.